I'm James. My parents are from Haiti.
Wow. We have a melting pot right here in the classroom. Only one true Floridian. Just one from Florida. But when I started this project on Paradise Park, I did not know that Paradise Park existed either. And I didn't go to Paradise Park, so I'm only going to tell you stories from individuals that actually went to Paradise Park, but the history of your culture, what you have to determine is who is documenting that history, from your perspective or from their perspectives. Oftentimes we have lecture material and books that has been written from a different individual, not necessarily from our perspective. If we had written a book, we might have written it differently, correct? So we're going to go into the presentation, and I'm going to grab this little pointer right here because I don't stand still. This is Robert Thomas, and that's a picture that he's holding of himself as a lifeguard at Paradise Park. Had the fastest swimming record for any of the lifeguards at Paradise Park. And the Red Cross. Now we talk about culture and how the land was their land, our land, whose land it was, but we all know that Florida was native country at one point in time. So where did the natives go? Where did they go? Did they sell the land to someone, or did someone push them off of their land? Where are our natives? This whole Jim Crow era, you would think that Jim Crow was a person, but he's not. It's a situation where white people felt that they needed to have control over black people, legalizing segregation for blacks and whites. But we all know that segregation happened in many ways. We segregate ourselves from our classmates. Some of you don't go in the same area, you don't sit together, you don't talk together. Does everyone know their classmates in this room other than just coming in class? Do you ever communicate with anyone or with your classmates outside of class? When there's an assignment, do you communicate with anyone? I can't call names because I'm bad with names. Do you communicate with anyone in the back?
Me?
Yes.
It depends.
It depends. So when we leave class, we have an assignment, and we're going to try our best to call a friend who's not in the class to help us with the assignment, because we're not going to communicate with anyone because we have not formed relationships with our classmates. And why? Because we have our own biases. If we tell the truth, we have our own biases. It may not be racial biases, but you have your biases. 1920 Election Day Massacre, right here in Ocoee, Florida. One simple reason: a massacre because a person wanted to vote. They wanted to use their voting privileges and vote, but they were literally burned out of their community for trying to vote. The people were burned, the homes were burned, the Masonic lodges was burned, the church was burned, everything was burned down to the ground just because an individual or individuals tried to vote. And it was legal. Lynchings, I'm sure you all have heard about lynchings. And lynchings in the modern sense, they say that it don't happen anymore, but you still have some of these practices taking place still here in the state of Florida. Between 1921 and 1946, Florida had the highest per capita rate of lynchings in the South. Florida had 61 lynchings, twice as many as Alabama, and topped only by Mississippi. We always hear about Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, but Florida had one of the highest rates. The Rosewood Massacre, Fannie Coleman Taylor said that a black man assaulted her, and he was killed. The whole town again was destroyed just because of what someone said. They didn't find any evidence to say that this was actually true. There was no evidence. Continued in 1949 in Groveland 4, you had Ernest, Charles, Samuel, Walter, falsely accused of raping a white married woman. Still, they had no evidence, but these individuals were killed just because someone said that they did something to them. You couldn't even look at it. Before the segregated Paradise Park opened, you had so many different owners. You had H.L. Anderson, who sold the land for about $3,000, is what we found on records, and it's changed hands many times. The person that's presented is here in Jonesboro at the Appleton Museum, presented on Paradise Park. And he tells the story. And even you have those individuals that's still around, and your parents and your grandparents that's still around, but are you really interested in their stories? What their livelihoods were at that time? Do you identify with anything that could have happened? Or do you say, like my children say, it was back in the day? That happened back in your time, or their time. And to show that I'm not a racist or whatever, my son, number 1, is married to an Asian. Son number 2 is married to a white girl. And my daughter is married to an African American, so I got it all mixed up. Paradise Landing was established in the same area that Paradise Park was in. But this park was established simply for white Americans. They wanted to showcase their white boatmen. Now, you had Silver Springs at the head of the springs, but you had Paradise Landing at the south side of the springs. But they featured white boatmen because all of the drivers and most of the staff at Silver Springs were black. African American, whichever the term you want to use today. But most of the staff at Silver Springs were African Americans. Did you know in 1949, right here at this school, Virgil D. Hawkins applied but was denied admission solely based on his color at the University of Florida? Did you know that? Did you know he has a building out here somewhere that we're going to find after I leave? But did you know the school that you're going on, attending, has some of those same racial issues? For years and years and years, the first student didn't attend until 1958, but he applied in 1949. So the next time you pass the Hawkins Center, go inside and see what it's all about. This is a big campus, but I'm sure many of you only go to the classes that you have. You're not exploring the history of the campus. The Negro Motorist book. Anybody familiar with this? Within the class?
I am, because I read the book.
The Negro Motorist book is how we travel. I didn't travel. But because right now, if I want to go to the Hilton or the Marriott, I call, make my reservations, and I have a room when I get there. But back then, you had to use the green book to travel if you were African American. It told you where the safe places were, where you can go and stay, where you can go and eat, where you could sleep. The hotels didn't even accommodate many people in their travel. Oftentimes, the individuals stayed with other house guests or church members in the communities. This is how we traveled throughout the United States. It wasn't just a Florida book. It was throughout the United States, and it existed for 20 years. 20 years. Now, Jim Crow era, you're talking about education, segregation, recreational facilities, marriage, the restroom, the drinking fountains, hotel, burial grounds, buses, hospitals. All of these different things happened during this whole era, but the one that we're going to talk about is the recreational facilities. But the burial grounds has piqued my interest recently. Did you know we have burial grounds in Marion County that if you were African American, you could not be buried in this cemetery unless you had some connections to a white person in the cemetery? Did you know that? Every time I pass a cemetery, I think about it, and they have it marked Evergreen Cemetery is one that's right off of 441 if you ever drive through town. And it's marked. The Negroes are buried in a nearby cemetery. Nearby is across the street. One cemetery is on this side and the other cemetery is on the opposite side of the street. Marriages, guys and girls don't understand that if you decide that you love someone and they're not of the same race, you could not date this individual because you literally could be killed. Guys and the girls, we had married couples that had to flee their town if they were biracial couples. But we have it as if it's not anything different. But we do still have individuals that's biased against racial marriages if they're not from the same race. But in 1949, it was business. Ray and Davidson formed a partnership and they seen a business opportunity, so they opened up Paradise Park. Keep in mind that Silver Springs, all of the workers in Silver Springs were minority. However, they could not come to the park after hours, before hours, during hours, because the park was segregated. They could work there, they could keep the grounds, they could drive the boats, they could work in the restaurants, they could do everything, but they could not bring their families to Paradise Park. So they couldn't bring their families to Silver Springs, so they developed Paradise Park, which is just a short way up the river. And we often talk about black people being illiterate and they don't know how to do this and they don't do this. And the white man is more superior than the black man. And we only using the terms black and white because that's what the Jim Crow's laws was all about. But we know that there's a lot of cultures, a lot of other cultures that have experienced these same issues on a regular basis. And they still experience those same issues today. So it's not issues that's happened way back when. We're still experiencing those same issues. Even your parents can tell you the issues that they have experienced or they still experience. There are some places that they just don't go. There are some communities right here in Alachua County, in Gainesville, that you don't go in just because you know not to go in that area, based on your gender or based on your race. So we have our founding president, William H. Jackson. He founded the Hampton campus in Ocala that no longer exists. But the Hampton campus is where African American students could go to college. It was the only college that they could go to. Now it's a college of Central Florida, which was integrated into one college. And then we had the funeral homes, we had doctors. We had to even open up our own hospital because we could not receive medical care at the hospitals that was in Marion County. So we had doctors to literally open up their own hospitals. We had individuals to open up their own businesses so we could have places to go. And this is just a long laundry list of just a few things that the African Americans accomplished. You're at UF, so I know you all can read. The imaginary line that divided the waters. We had Paradise Park and Silver Springs. Now keep in mind, there were a lot of black-owned beaches, like Butler Beach in Jacksonville. We had all of these beaches that individuals had paid for lots so we could have a place to go. But Paradise Park and Silver Springs was different, simply because the owners were white. They owned Paradise Park and they owned Silver Springs. They had beauty contests. The VFW had the Miss Paradise Park beauty contest. And the first picture here, this is Miss Carrie Parker Warren. She also worked out here at UF. She was a teacher, instructor for the PK Developmental Research School. I don't know where that is out here, but she did work here. And that was the actual first contest of Miss Paradise Park in 1949. But Paradise Park was a mega association for African Americans to come through, and thousands of visitors visited every year. But keep in mind, we had no accommodations in hotels. Motels, because it were motels, we had no accommodations for motels. And she still lives in the community. And then we had the underwater photography at Silver Springs. We had Paradise Park, and we had Silver Springs. And Bruce Mozart is the photographer of these images. Most of these vintage black and white images, Bruce allowed me to use his images and gave me permission prior to him passing. You had the lifeguards that trained in Paradise Park. This is Henry, Robert, and George. Robert is the one that's in the middle, and he was also on the first slide presentation. He had never been to Silver Springs since Paradise Park closed in 1969. His first time walking through the gates of Silver Springs was in 2015 when we released the book. He had never went to Silver Springs, and his comment was they didn't want us there then. Why do they want us to come out here now? And all of these guys, they still live in Ocala. At the Barton's Deer Ranch, Silver Springs, Paradise Park, and keeping in mind that you had some of the same amenities at Paradise Park that Silver Springs had, but if you look how the grass look at Silver Springs, and then look at the background of Paradise Park. So you had similar amenities, but they were not the same. And this is the Paradise Park brochure, and if you look at it, it says, see Florida Silver Springs from Paradise Park for colored people. So basically you can get on the boat on the Silver River. You had your white guests coming up the stream, and you had your African American guests going down the stream, so they would pass on the same river. Different boats, same river. And so when Paradise Park had enough guests, they would call to the head of the springs and say, we have enough guests. They would send a boat to the end, to the Paradise Park, and then they would have guests to take them up and down the river. But they passed on the same river. This is Dr. Bethune College in Daytona Beach. She traveled to Paradise Park, and they had a Bethune-Cookman Day. And this is Albert Bethune, her grandson, that I had the opportunity to meet. But see, Albert had different arrangement. He wasn't just one of the good old guys that could not go here or could not go there. Because his grandmother had status and his grandmother raised him, he was able to travel and go to places and be in meetings with other individuals that everyone else could not be in. And the story about Mr. Bethune, he told me to meet him. I wanted to meet him because I interviewed him by phone, but I wanted to meet him in person to make sure that he wasn't a fictitious person in my imagination. So I went to Daytona Beach to meet him, and I did not know that he was under heavy security because, you know, a little girl from Ocala going to meet Mr. Bethune, he's just the grandson, but they had heavy security at the hotel. And I noticed the bodyguards, they continued to walk the premises, but I did not know that's what they were doing at first. So I'm here talking, laughing, and he's a friendly person, not knowing that they're watching me. So I'm in there talking with him, and you know, I'm one of the selfie persons. Can we do a selfie together and all of this other stuff? So everybody is like, kept walking past. Only did I figure it out after I left that they were watching me. And they were armed. But you couldn't see it, but you could see it bulging. So I didn't know that he came with the security level that he came with, but see, he didn't tell me that ahead of time. I might have thought about it before I went there. The attacks continued. In St. Augustine in 1964, you had a group of individuals still beating individuals. I mean, this was the ocean, but it was a little section, they called it St. Augustine Beach, but you're talking an ocean, a huge ocean that they didn't want anybody to swim in but themselves. Two parts divided by an indivisible line on the Silver River. So this is the head of the springs, and that's what they call Silver Springs. And this is Paradise Park. You can look at the differences between the area of Paradise Park and the area of Silver Springs. They had Clear Blue Springs, and this is a picture that kind of captured my eye when I seen individuals of African American descent leaning over the boat. I had always seen Silver Springs, but I had never seen individuals looking like myself. riding the boats, and it was all of them. And that's when my query actually started. Ross Allen Reptile Institute was there at Silver Springs, but they also had snakes at Paradise Park. And Mr. Glover was one of the snake handlers, but that's Ross Allen himself. And I'm told that he had a respect for all people, regardless of their color or their ethnicity. These are additional pictures that surfaced since I've started this project. The Jackson family lives here in Gainesville somewhere. I was down at the Madison Museum for the presentation, and says, well, I have these pictures. They didn't know what Paradise Park was either. So we have pictures, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, or your family member may have pictures that you've seen all your life on the television stand, on the whatnot stand, in the bedroom, but you don't know who these individuals are, and you've never asked. Ask the question, who are they? Because when they pass on, you don't know who they are. We didn't ask to go to Silver Springs. All we wanted to have is equal access. We didn't ask for the schools to be integrated in many ways. We just wanted equal materials, equal literature, equal books, equal access. But the integration did take place. And this is Frank Pinkston. He went up to Virginia Union College, came back and got the civil rights movement going in Marion County. Dr. Dorsey Miller joined him in the movement, and Frank Washington joined him in the movement. But these were the leaders. The leaders for Marion County looked like you all. They were about your age. And they started the movement. Are you all willing to stand up for something that's right? Or will you continue to be in your segregated corners and just keep doing what you do? If you see someone doing something wrong that you know is wrong, will you be willing to stand up and speak out? Or will you just turn your head the other way as if you did not see it? This is Cover Baptist Church, and this is L.C. Stevenson. L.C. Stevenson was the president of the Hunting and Fishing Club. The older generation of people are the ones who protected the civil rights movement. The only way that they had rights to bear arms, they formed a hunting and fishing club. And he was the president. He's standing with a gun that looks like the one that he had in front of the garage that's still there in Marion County now. That is a meeting place. They met in a garage with the closed down and no windows. When they protected the movement, they would go up under the church to make sure when the younger individuals were meeting that they didn't have any disruptions. And he still lives in Marion County. Paradise Park closed in 1969, and we say integration took place, but we could say, was it true integration or was it assimilation? Because it was a loss of culture. Food, the dance, the music, family, togetherness, a safe zone. It was a place that the individuals could go to and didn't have to worry about being humiliated in their own areas. When they integrated to Silver Springs, they felt like there was a visitor at the Springs. It wasn't like Paradise Park. It was a total different aspect of the park. Even though they could ride the boats, they did not feel welcomed at Silver Springs. And this is David Faison, and you've seen David Faison talking in the video. He still works at Silver Springs. Almost 60 years later. I know it was about 55 the last time I counted. But he still works at Silver Springs, driving the boats. The one that said, we want to make you all happy. He still drives the boats at Silver Springs. He's a captain. Documenting her history. That's Miss Bethune again in the hotel that we're at. I didn't know that I was being surveillanced. But documenting your history, documenting his grandmother's history. He's writing a book, he's written a book, and it hasn't even came out, but you know, he wanted me to have a copy. So I have a copy of the rough draft that hasn't been published yet. We have a lot of older people in our communities that sometimes we forget about, that they're the true trailblazers in our communities because they have lived what we talk about, what they teach about. They have actually lived through these times And this is Lois D. Miller. Lois wrote her own book. Of course, it had to be edited, but she wrote her own book. And I think she has 2 or 3 copies of the same book. But what she said was, go read my book. She didn't want another interview. She tells you to read her book. She'll be 104 years old. I think 4. Yes. She'll be 104 years old next month. Now, the historical marker now stands at the front, the entrance of Paradise Park. And if you look at the front of the book, this is the image that was at. This is the marker that marked the spot of where to go into Paradise Park. And my teacher, my kindergarten teacher, is right here on the front cover of the book. So she was elated to find out that one of her students had picked up pictures that she was involved with. But this is the historical marker that stands where the sign did stand. And these are the Friends of Silver Springs standing with me. And they were a big push towards making sure that there was a historical marker at the entrance. And then you ask, well, what is there now? Just the debris. And if you look at the debris over there, you'll find the concrete benches that were there at Paradise Park. You have some of the old ladders and different things that was at Paradise Park. So you have a big, nice area that could be developed into something. But what? We don't know. This is Bruce Mozart. He's the notorious underwater photographer for Silver Springs. He passed away last year at the age of 99, but he did give permission for most of his images, the black and white images in the books, were his. And when I went to his studio, because of his age, he still called me color. Come on in my office. He gave me his office and an eye cup that looked through his negatives to make sure that this book was documented properly. This is a picture of Bruce at the nursing home. He received his copy and he was excited. And at the bottom is Evelyn, who was his only staff person for the last 40 plus years. The studio is still there. The studio is still there. And he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of negatives and pictures just waiting to be donated to some school. Not sure which one. I started the project in 2005. The written agreement with the University Press of Florida. The book released in 2015. Historical marker, 2015. And now the additional signage at Silver Springs is there with the wall where you see me at, that was not there. So they've added some more pictures. They've named the Paradise Ballroom. So things are coming around, but it's still, to me, not truly integrated until we see some more images. We see people that's coming to the park more frequently. Now this is Mr. Long. So what I've started doing is making a collection of stories of individuals, but that's kind of time consuming because you have to write and write and write. And then with older individuals, you have to go back and forth and back and forth. They tell you to come and then you come and then they're not ready. You have to go back again. But this is Mr. Long. He's 101. He'll be 102 in 2 months. So he's still right there in Marion County, preserving the history of our Marion County families. And Mr. Long started his business with $665. He opened his grocery store. It's run down, but it still stands today. And it's still a store, but it's owned by someone else. Moving forward, are we really there yet? Are we really ready to start talking about those relationships and how we can make things better for everyone? Are we really ready to stand up when we see someone that's being mistreated, to say something rather than turning our head the opposite way? Could be at a party or wherever you all go. Could be at a restaurant. Have you ever seen individuals talking back to the waitresses and the waiters? So be respectful in all places. This is my contact information. I'm trying to get books in all of the schools and libraries in Marion County because oftentimes when they're teaching Florida history, they only teach a segment of the history. And if we don't document the history, who's documenting the history? The history books will always be written based on the individual author's opinion. Not necessarily everything factual, it could be factual, but it's still gonna be from their perspective. So who's writing your stories? Thank you.
I told you to come prepared with questions.
Yes.
Who would like to?
I just couldn't figure out how long exactly was Paradise Park open for?
It was open for 20 years. The park was open for 20 years. It had one park manager, which was Eddie Vereen. He worked at Silver Springs as a boat captain. They made him the park manager, and he opened and closed. He retired in 1967, and that's when the park started going down, but it officially closed in 1969. So from 1949 to 1969.
Thank you.
Questions in the back, and black shirt, you got a question? Black shirt.
Yes. Tavares, what are you thinking of? Or Tavares? Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you from Lake
yeah.
City or is it Devon?
No, I'm from, not really from Lake City, from White Springs.
No, from White Springs, but you're from that area. Did they ever cover any of this when she's talking about Lake County? So if you never heard
Lake
about
County
it?
is huge.
Yeah.
I never really heard about it, so, but then again, I moved away when I was like elementary.
Yeah. Again, this is part of what we're trying to do, is spread the word about these things that should be.
It happened in every community, big and small. It was everywhere. Even in your different countries, it happened.
So why exactly did it close in 1969?
It closed in 69 for integration purposes, is what we're told. That now your guests from Paradise Park can now visit Silver Springs. But they felt like they were not welcome in Silver Springs.
So did whites close it or blacks close it? Like people who owned it or like was it?
I think because of the segregation laws,
Pressure or something?
yes. But what they would have liked to see from the interviews that I completed, they would have liked to see Paradise Park stay open as well. But then the guests from Silver Springs could go to Paradise Park. That area could stay open. It's prime. It's beautiful back there. So, but they just completely shut everything down and let it waste away.
So they just closed there's nothing that, no one used that at all, like the facilities?
Yes. You can't even get to Paradise Park now. Well, they won't allow you back there.
Why?
It's underkept. And Paradise Park is down a long, dreary road. When I was trying to find the site, they had told me how to get there, and I drove an orange truck, and not Gator, but an orange truck going down the road, and someone stopped me and turned it around, because it did say private property, but I wanted to see how far I can get down the road before someone stopped.
So who owns it then?
The state owns it now.
Oh, okay.
Question?
Yeah, James.
Me?
Yes.
I have a more personal question. So while researching and writing this book, how much growth did you experience as a person?
Oh my gosh. I felt like I missed school. Serious. Because some of the things that were discussed during this whole civil rights era, the post-war, I just feel like I missed a whole segment of school. And it had a lot to do with my instructors. Because if the teachers are not going to give you the information, how do you take it and do something with it? I was not taught this in school. So I'm almost 6 years old. So now I'm trying to find this information. My children are probably your age. But now I'm like, my eyes have been opened and I'm like, I need help. I need help to document this, these situations that's going on and on and on. But we have so much history in our communities that we just don't know about. And then when it comes down to your level, you're not interested. You don't want to know because it doesn't exist, but it still exists.
All teachers eventually become writers, either oral historians or we sit down and we write. You know, I've got about 3 or 4 books that are in progress, but Cynthia is one of the few who's actually brought it to fruition. I will mention that in the book, they talk about how the road to Paradise Park was very poorly developed, and it twisted around for miles, and you were lucky if you actually found it. While the roads to Silver Springs, for the white people, of course,
Yes.
was state-sponsored and really, really quite good.
You spoke to multiple people, of course, to write this book.
Yes.
Any stories that like if anybody asks you, Miss, which story sticks with you the most from any one of the stories you?
The story that sticks with me the most is Mr. Albert Bethune, because we always talk about the things that we had or didn't have, but he was one of the individuals that had everything. He didn't have to go without because of his grandmother. So his story will always stick out in my mind. And the story of the Marine family will always stick out in my mind, simply because they ran the park. It was a family-ran park. The uncle he was the park manager, so he had the sister, the brother, the cousin, whoever, they're helping him run the park, cooking, whatever. So it was a family affair, it was a family outing, it was church gatherings at Paradise Park, it was baptism, so a lot of things that you could not do in a regular secular